Today, Dr. Satish Kumar is going to talk on drawbacks of the current first-line agents against the gram-negative pathogens. So, almost on all the antibiogram pattern throughout India, the first-line therapy that what you are using traditionally in the ICUs are ultimately getting resistance to our gram-negative bacteria. That is the pattern, antibiotic pattern and antibiotic protocol in our ICU. Dr. Satish Kumar is enlightened on this pattern and how to deal with this issue in our ICUs. He is going to talk. I request Dr. Satish, who is the head of the Department of Critical Care, Apollo Hospital, Secunderabad. Satish, please start.
Yeah, thanks, David. Good morning, all. Today's my talk is I'm going to discuss on present scenarios normally we are facing in tertiary care ICUs. Like here, the first line agents means my definition is to a point up to meropenem. So excluding colistin, tigecycline, and what are our newly available antibiotics. Those are not called as first line. First line means up to starting from cephalosporins and pseudomonal penicillins, then carbapenems considered as a first line agents. So I am defining and I'm restricting my talk to that only. So the evolution of the antibiotics ultimately, like initially there was no antibiotic in way back in 2000 BC, where just people say that eat this root and you'll get better. So after that, slowly the evolution came up and penicillin came into the limelight in somewhere around 1945. So after that, they were thinking that we are winning over bacteria, but we'll very in a short time we understood that bacteria are very intelligent than human race. So from there, this resistance pattern is creeping up. And finally, now in 2000, that is 20 years back, then again, we are thinking of, we have gone back to the olden days that there is no antibiotic available to win over the existing bacteria because bacteria are more intelligent than human beings. Again, we are coming to a point that we don't have anything to tackle this multi-drug resistant bacteria, and ultimately we are going back to eat this root and you will get better. That's all. So why this is happening? Because as per the Darwin theory, it is not the strongest of the species that survives. It is the most intelligent and best adaptability to the change will survive. So always bacteria tries to adapt to the bacteria that is being thrown onto that, and it is developing a resistant pattern which ultimately will not have any effect of this antibiotic over the existing bacteria. So this is that global scenario right now. The WHO has given an alarming call talking about like Acinetobacter, multi-drug resistant, Pseudomonas, aeruginosa, Enterobacteriaceae. They are very, very critical and they become very, very like a strong alert is being given over there. Next comes Enterococcus, Staphylococcus, Helicobacter. These are all the high resistant bugs, then the medium resistant bugs. So in this scenario, we just choose these important bugs like escape organisms, which includes Enterococcus faecium, Enterobacteriaceae, ESBL, E. coli, Staphylococcus, Streptococcus, Klebsiella, Acinetobacter, Pseudomonas. And these are all MDR bugs. So these high alert bugs, most of the times we come across Acinetobacter, Pseudomonas, and carbapenem is producing Klebsiella and ESBL, E. coli. So similarly, in Indian scenario, ICMR has given a alert call even in Indian ICUs also. So specifically telling that microbes that are becoming more resistant in tertiary care ICUs. So we are left with very, very minimal choices like newer antibiotics. But whatever that is presently existing to a point of tigecycline and colistin is also coming to a resistant patterns. So looking at the patient factors, why this is happening? Because certain things like we are not able to, we don't have a control like baseline characters of the patient, like higher age group, like more than 70 years, coexisting comorbidities like diabetes, and recurrent UTIs, recurrent infections, patient is on immunosuppressive, solid organ transplantation, and neutropenic sepsis, and patient is having a chronic diseases, COPD, These are the baseline characters which are having considered as high risk factors. Then epidemiologically, where the patient is coming from, like he's already spent some time in another hospital for which he's being treated and was given inappropriate antibiotics at that point of time. And any antibiotic that is being given in the last 3 months may not work at the present scenario. And we should understand the prior colonization of the bacteria on the patient, like vulnerable areas like axilla, groin, all this. Patient is existing, like being dwelled in the hospital for more than a week in the hospital in the ICUs, without ICUs, which is more prevalent for MDR bugs. They're likely to have a MDR bug infection. And indwelling devices like the advancement in the medical care, like having a pacemakers, any dialysis sheets. These lines are PEG tubes, tracheostomy tubes. All these things harbor form a biofilm. So these are all the patient factors which are specific high risk factors to have a MDR GNB. Then this is one study. This is an extended prevalence of infection in intensive care, EPIC-3 study. In this study, they just done a 24 hours point prevalence study conducted in 1150 centers in which 85 countries on September 13th, 2017. That is almost 6 years back. Here, the observation is the prevalence of suspected or proven infections was around 54%, and about 22% were from the in ICUs. Among these 8135 patients, they segregated 5259, that 5,000 odd patients, that 65%, at least one positive microbiological culture, and 67% among them is gram-negative microorganisms, and 37% are gram-positive fungal infections, around 16%. And the in-hospital mortality is more than 30%. Patient with a suspected process. So this is the present the observed burden of the MDR bugs in tertiary care ICUs. The study is conducted in 6 years back. And how this led this, looking into the previous studies, like EPIC-1 is being done in 1992 and EPIC-2 in 2007. So in EPIC-1, it was 45%, EPIC-2, it is 51%, and in EPIC-3, it is 54%. So the resistant pattern is going up. MDR bug infections are like becoming day by day, they are increasing the ICU population. So these are the bugs what we discussed already. So escape organisms. These the pattern of the bug, that is how they are actually working here is enterobacterials resistant to extended spectrum cephalosporins, including AMC, Ambler A, extended spectrum beta-lactamases, and Ambler C, AMC, ESBLs, and AMCs. Then carbapenem resistant enterobacterials, carbapenem resistent Pseudomonas aeruginosa, Acinetobacter baumannii, which is resistant to carbapenem. So these are all the specific bugs with a specific resistant pattern. This is one study done by Emerson report in 2019. They want to analyze the susceptibility of E. coli trends from 2016 to 2019. They found that E. coli colicin sensitivity is reasonably okay from 2017. It's maintaining around 99%, whereas meropenem sensitivity is coming down. It was around 80, now came down to 74. And imipenem also came down. So piperacillin tazobactam 62. So the trending of the resistant pattern is going up with respect to meropenem, that is carbapenems, and pseudomonal penicillins. So similarly, in the same study, they looked into the Klebsiella pneumonia. This also the trend is the same. Colistin sensitivity is still that is present, but when compared to meropenem, the sensitivity is slowly coming down. Resistant is growing up 51% in 2016, gone to 49%, and imipenem 64 to 45, and piperacillin 41 to 38. So there is a decrement in the sensitivity pattern with respect to meropenem, imipenem, and piperacillin tazobactam. So ultimately, we are left with, in both the cases in E. coli and Klebsiella, still colistin is the bigger weapon we have in our hand. So this is how the resistant pattern evolved in the bacteria. Almost this slide is like a timeline of the antibiotic resistance from 1930s to 2005. It's an older slide. In the resistant patterns is basically intrinsically some bacteria resistant. So that is, it's a character of the bacteria. There is nothing to do with the environment or the patient. No specific reason, but some bacteria are inherently resistant to this antibiotic. Next thing is initially bacteria are sensitive, but slowly they acquire a resistance pattern. The third thing is some bacteria, the cross resistance with the groups is also, there is one pattern. And ultimately, the last thing is multi-drug resistant pattern or pan-drug resistant patterns. So how the second part, like acquired resistance happens. So initially, this is a resistant, the sensitive drug, and the yellow one is the resistant bacterium. So once they're living together, slowly the sensitive bacteria will acquire a resistant pattern by a gene transfer. So this is the pattern of acquisition of the new resistance. So the actually we understand the how antibiotics work in any bactericidal or bacteriostatic effects. We need to understand that bacterial cell wall is the main thing where which allows the bacteria to enter in, allows the antibiotic to enter into the bacteria. So the important thing is the peptidoglycan cell wall. Okay, lipopolysaccharides, peptidoglycans, so there is a pore in, this is the entrance point through which the antibiotic will enter into the bacteria, and once they enter into the bacteria, they kill the bacteria. Similarly, these are the different mechanisms. Show you this one. First, this is the antibiotic. The one first mechanism how they kill the bacteria is they enter into the bacteria, they destroy the bacteria by addition into a point called as the target structure. Once it attaches to the target structure, it potentiates the activity of the antimicrobials. So there is a possibility of the target is changed, that is an acquired resistance, and there is a possibility of this entry point is getting blocked. The porin is blocked, so not able to, this antibacterial cannot enter into the bacteria. If it enters also, it may not have a proper target organ because the target organ is being mutated and it is a different target organ is produced by the bacteria. Even this is not happening, then there is a new disruptive enzyme is produced by the bacteria which destructs our antibiotic. Even this is not there. Maybe whatever the antimicrobial enters into the cell is being forcibly centered by a mechanism called as efflux mechanisms. So either any of these areas can create, if we stop this process from the bacterial point, it acquires a resistance. So this antibiotic may not work in that particular bacteria. So these are all different resistant patterns among that pathogens like bacteria, viruses, and parasites, fungi. So antimicrobial becomes ineffective by ultimately leading to adverse clinical outcomes. Infections are harder to treat, may require an alternative drugs, treatment for longer, and no treatment is available. Now we are heading to that point. So this is what the mechanisms, enzymatic destructions happen. There are different enzymes produced by either it is a process of acetylation or phosphorylation etylation. I'm not going into details of how what antibiotic is modified in the existing bacteria. The destruction happens either in the beta lactamase, the ring is getting opened and ultimately it will not work on the bacteria. So look at, so understanding these patterns, we can classify these infections like MDR infections or extensive drug resistant infection. MDR means non-susceptible to at least one agent in the 3 or more antibacterial categories. XDR is defined as non-susceptibility to at least one agent in all but 2 or fewer antimicrobial categories. Pan drug means it is resistant to all the antibiotics that are available. So now the classification of this, how this ESBLs are classified. Metallo-beta-lactamase and non-metallo-beta-lactamase. Class A is non-metal, class C is non-metal, and class D is non-metal. Only class B is metallo-beta-lactamases. Class A is again, it is a serine proteases. Class C is AMP-C, class D is ESBLs. And with oxacillin is producing antibiotic. So ESBL, one slide on this, they hydrolyze most of the penicillins. This is the ESBL ring, and this ring is opened at between the nitrogen and the double bond of oxygen. So at this point, the ring get open. So beta lactamase, it is how the resistance pattern happens with penicillin and cephalosporins. So ESBL producing organisms are most common is Klebsiella species and E. coli and Enterobacter salmonella. These are all ESBL producing. Most commonly we come across in our ICUs are Klebsiella and E. coli. Then common ESBL causing infections are, they are starting from nosocomial infections, especially in the ICUs, pneumonia. There is bacteremia, urinary tract infection, intra-abdominal infections, meningitis, peritonitis. And they are highly, they are reported to high mortality, more up to 46%. And they also adds to the extended length of the stay in the hospital, and ultimately it's a cost burden to the patient and the system. AMC type is cephalosporinases, the Samler class C. They hydrolyze penicillin, cephalosporins, and monobactams. And AMC type enzymes are poorly inhibited by the classical ESBL inhibitors like BL-BLA combinations. The other classification is Bush-Jacobi and Medeors. Group 1 is cephalosporinase producing AMC class. Group 2 is serine beta-lactamase, that is AD, and metallo-beta-lactamase is class B. Coming to the carbaphenamases, their beta-lactamases that hydrolyze the penicillins, most cases of cephalosporins, and all the carbaphenams are being resistant now, and monobactams, and because they are not being hydrolyzed by metallo-beta-lactamase. So metallo-beta-lactamases is the most prevalent in India. There is a misnomer called as New Delhi metallo-beta-lactamase enzyme producing carbaphenamase resistant Klebsiella. The mechanism of resistance is either serine carbaphenamase or porine deficiency, because the opening channels in the cell wall is the main gateway for the antibiotic to enter into the bacteria. When there is less channels, less antibiotic is getting into the bacteria. And once it is being entered, maybe it is forcibly centered by a mechanism called as efflux pump. Any of the three patterns can happen here. So now we are finally all over the resistances, including colistin and tigecycline, is now we are coming across. Either it is Pseudomonas MDR, Acinetobacter MDR, Klebsiella MDR. Site of infections, urinary tract and respiratory tract infections, which are having very high mortality. This is IDSA or CDC guidelines. Once we come across a culture confirmed and how we have to sort out for which antibiotic will work in that particular scenario. This is available in the net. This is one study where there is a concept of carbaphenum sparing or colistin sparing concept has come. So this study clearly they wanted to look into, and all these studies they say that as a non-inferior studies, and they compared with meropenem with the other combinations BL-BLA, they say that it is non-inferior to meropenem, non-inferior to colistin only. So this study clearly told that it is appropriate therapy of an appropriate combination therapy in mortality in patient bloodstream infections. So retrospective cohort study, they have taken a CP mortality scoring to identify which patient is being actually to be included into the study, and mortality score 0 to 7 is considered as the score is considered low when it is between 0 to 7, and it is high when it is 0 to 15. And patients were 437 patients were included. They clearly told appropriate therapy was associated with a protective effect on the mortality among the patient with bloodstream infection due to CPA. Combination therapy was associated with improved survival only in the patient with high mortality scoring. Patient with the bloodstream infection due to carbaphenamase resistant enterococcus should enterobacteriaceae active therapy as soon as they're diagnosed. So early intervention is very important. Monotherapy should be considered for those with a low mortality score. So what is the way forward now? This is the burden and this is the present situation we understood. What is the next level now? So the different intervention strategies to combat this is, there are 5 main strategies. One is, as you always know, infection prevention by proper hand hygiene, antibiotics, stewardship, de-escalations. This is all being done because most of the ICUs now we are having infection control team. And the second is prevention is always better than cure. So vaccination, most of the diseases now, their infections are having vaccines. The third one is reducing the exposure to the antibiotics, unwanted antibiotic usage, considering that it is a viral infection, we don't require an antibiotic. Maybe with a very simple infection, we need not treat that patient with high-end antibiotics. So this is the way we have to implement proper antibiotic stewardship. Fourth one is minimizing the use of antibiotics, because any infection, for if it is a simple infection, give antibiotic up to 3 to 5 days, unless it is like deep-rooted infections like osteomyelitis or meningitis, maybe extended up to 14 days, and some infections may require antibiotic up to 4 weeks. The fifth one is there any possibility to develop a new set of antibiotics to overcome such resistances, which is very, very least hope that is we are expecting, because the pipeline is almost dry. The factors that includes this is one part I want to highlight. Apart from the human race, infections, hospital disease, all this one pattern. The other pattern which we may not come across is there is a rampant use of antibiotics for animal husbandry. They use prophylactic antibiotics. They use antibiotics to improve the yield from good milk output, and so many things are happening in the poultry fields. They use unwanted antibiotics. There is a 60 to 70% of usage of cephalosporins, colistin, polymyxins in poultry farms and animal husbandry. So this is one thing we never look into those areas, but this is one of the highest burden we are facing, and we did not have any specific regulations in India not to use this in non-human related areas. So what are all the drugs that we are left with? We are left with tigecycline, polymyxins, E and B, fosfomycin, minocycline, ceftazidime, avibactam combination, and additional combination is aztreonam to over and above the ceftazidime, avibactam, cefiderocol, plazomycin, erythromycin, and modacyclines. So these are the available antibiotics as of now. Maybe some are not available still in India. So one or two highlighting points about these antibiotics. Tigecycline, effective against ESBLs, but it is not active against Pseudomonas. It is also has a potential activity over MRSA. So that is the advantage of this tigecycline. It covers most of the GNBs, MDR GNBs, including gram-positive MRSA, but only setback is it does not cover Pseudomonas. As indicated in intra-abdominal infections and skin and soft tissue infections, but not useful for bloodstream infections. Dosage is 100 milligrams twice daily. So 100 milligrams start, followed by 50 milligrams twice daily, and not useful in tigecycline group. So children below 18 years should not be used. Pregnants also can't be used. Colistin is like only biggest weapon what we have in our hand right now. Polymyxin E is a peptide antibiotic. It is actually re-entry of this antibiotic, which was completely became useless in before 1960s, but again it is being reused right now for particularly Acinetobacter baumannii and Klebsiella pneumonia. And here it is, there are two varieties, polymyxin E and polymyxin B. Polymyxin E setbacks are like it is neurotoxic and nephrotoxic. It cannot be used with other nephrotoxic antibiotics like aminoglycosides, and it also has a neuromuscular blockade effect, which hampers with our weaning process from the ventilator. But setback is there is no specific fixed dose. Initially, once it came into the market, we started using 2 million units, then became 3 million, then 4.9. Loading dose is now up to 12 million units. And maintenance dose is 4.5 twice daily. Right now we are using, but it is polymyxin B versus E. Polymyxin B penetration to the urinary tract is very less. So if it is a urinary tract infection, polymyxin E, colistin method is to be used, not the polymyxin B. This is the table comparing both polymyxin B and colistin. As of the study says that polymyxin B is relatively renal friendly rather than colistin. At the same time, polymyxin B does not require a loading dose because it is the original drug. whereas colistin is a prodrug, so it requires a high loading dose. These are the different patterns, like we look into when to choose what among the polymyxins. Here, the concern is even in the polymyxin B also, the MDR-GNB is the rising concern. Okay, worldwide is reported. This is how the creeping up of resistant pattern from 2006 to 2014, and it was almost zero, and it's slowly positive isolates is going up to 50% in 2000 up to 2014 only. It's an older data. Fosfomycin, it is useful in the gram-negative bacteria, SBLs, and carbapenemase resistant enterobacteriaceae. It has a very good enhanced activity against Pseudomonas when combined with carbapenems, but it is inherently resistant to Acinetobacter, and it should not be used as a monotherapy in Pseudomonas. Resistant pattern can be of the following varieties. Either it is a chromosomal variety, and it can have a plasmid mediated, decrease the transport across the cell wall, and enzymatic destruction happens. Dose adjustment required for renally compromised patient, and the setback is patient may develop hypernatremia. In a patient who might be having a compromised heart, it precipitates pulmonary edema. Minocycline is a tetracycline derivative, very good in hospital-acquired pneumonia and VAP. It's renal friendly and hepatic friendly. The problem is it has magnesium toxicity. Again, it interferes with our routine management of the patient. Either it develops bradyarrhythmias or weaning from the mechanical ventilation support. Ceftazidime avibactam, now this is the drug coming. Almost 20 companies are coming up with this ceftazidime avibactam in this month, because the Pfizer patency is over. So many people are coming up now, and they found that this is a very, very good drug to spare the carbapenems and the colistin. But we need to understand this. Most of the studies are being done in Western data. Indian data shows this sensitivity pattern in India is relatively less. Even in Indian scenario, more than 30% of the ICU acquired infections are resistant to ceftazidime avibactam, but it is used for complicated UTI, complicated intra-abdominal infections, along with metronidazole. Specific treatment for HAP-VAP, USBLs, AMPC, KPC, oxacillinase producing carbaminomases, but it is not effective. Please understand, it is not useful in metallo beta lactamase producing bugs. It has a efflux pump activity, porin pump mutations, and inhibits the transport into the cell. So these are all the setbacks, and renal dose adjustment as per the creatinine clearance. But the only the side effects wise adverse reactions, it decreases the platelet count, it prolongs the PT, APDT, potential seizure productions, and myoclonus. So don't think that it is like a great weapon in Indian scenario, because Indian scenario, most of the KPCs are New Delhi metallo beta lactamases. We don't have OXA48, relatively less, and we compare with this isolated OXA48 versus NDM producing, and the combination of both OXA48 and NDM. In Indian scenario, either it is NDM or NDM plus OXA48. We don't have a relatively OXA48 is less in Indian scenario. Aztreonam combination works better if there is a OXA48. So in Indian scenario, the studies are more favorable to use ceftazidime avibactam plus aztreonam in MDR and New Delhi metallo beta lactamase producing KPCs. The problem is the combination will have a more deleterious effect on drop in the platelets, raised PT, APDT, so patient will land up into bleeding disorders. This is one drug, cefiderocol. It's a cephalosporin variety, does not have any gram-positive coverage, but it's a very good proven drug for GNB. It acts by chelating ferric ions, and the bacterial iron transport system is blocked, and the setback is seizures. Plazomicin, it's another group. It also belongs to the group of aminoglycoside. Complicated UTS is indicated, but it does not. It has no effect on Acinetobacter and Pseudomonas. Again, it is only for E. coli and Klebsiella, not for Acinetobacter and Pseudomonas. It's also, as usual, aminoglycoside, nephrotoxic, ototoxic, and it causes neuromuscular blockade. Resistance is again efflux pump for deficiencies. Ervocycline is another tetracycline, not for complicated UTA, it's only complicated intra-abdominal infections, not useful in Enterobacteriaceae and Pseudomonas. Omadarocycline, it is useful in the community acquired pneumonia, acute bacterial skin and soft tissue infections, resistant to Pseudomonas. So these are all the different dosages. I'll share the PPT for you. No point in memorizing this. So these are the expected new combinations in the future. Ceftazidime avibactam already available in India, which is active against ACD of the ambler, but not on B. B is most prevalent in India. So in Indian scenario, we are not sure how it works. Meropenem avibactam, again, it is against A and C class. So again, maybe the questionable effect in India. Imipenem relebactam, similar. Azithromycin with avibactam, yeah, that is the where in Indian scenario, AMP B group of beta metallo-beta lactams work here. And cefiderocol is one thing. These two should be like maybe our hope. We'll see how it goes. The take-home message is ceftazidime avibactam. It's only for carbapenems producing Klebsiella oxa 48, not for carbapenems producing Klebsiella NDM, that is Indian scenario, not for oxa 48 plus NDM in Indian scenario, not for 50% of the E. coli MDR, not for Pseudomonas, because Pseudomonas resistance is through penicillin binding protein. So not for MDR Acinetobacter. The only hope is MDR GNB in Indian scenario is polymyxin, still holds good, a combination of TG cycline, phosphomycin combination, minocycline combination. But keep it in mind, ceftazidime avibactam plus azithromycin is the another possible hope that is available for Indian scenario. But coagulopathy and bleeding are the possible worst side effects. So thank you. Save antibiotics, as there is a slogan, save tigers in India. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Very well explained about the antibiotics and Indian scenario and resistant pattern. Any questions?
Nice talk, Satish.
Sir, thank you, sir.
Just wanted to add. Did you mention that you mentioned the meropenem varobactam, sir?
No, sir.
Yeah. Yes. In the USA, it is another one is meropenem nacubactam.
No, sir.
It is available in USA. Meropenem nacubactam.
Nacubactam.
Which covers the all ambulance classification, all including B also, A, B, C, D.
B also.
Okay. B also. Right now we are managing with adding azithromycin.
Sir.
Maybe hope it will come some point of time into India also.
Pfizer is going to launch in its
yes.
So that's what. No, the only problem with that is coagulopathy and bleeding.
Yes.
And azithromycin as such is highly labile, sir. It is a very good anti-pseudomonal monobactam. Highly labile. Yes. In the presence of ESBLs, its action is questionable.
Yes. Yeah, when they are combining, it is more effective. One more thing is, right now we are using azithromycin is 1 gram 8 hourly or 2 gram 8 hourly.
Sir.
Recent study and an observational study has shown, instead of giving TID, if you give at a time 3 grams
sir.
OD, it is more effective.
3 grams OD.
Sorry, OD 3 grams OD.
So, sir, can you see the slide, sir?
Yeah.
So ceftazidime plus avibactam 2.5 grams 8th hourly plus azithromycin 2 grams 8th hourly is the recommended dosage in Indian scenario for NDM carbapenems.
Yes, sir.
Sir, Sadish sir,
Sir,
nice talk, sir. Thank you.
thank you, sir.
Uh,
అన్నా వినిపించట్లేదు.
శ్రీనివాస్ సార్ వినిపించట్లేదు.
ఏంటి వినపడలేదు?
ముక్కినట్టుంది, ఏదో ముక్కినట్టు అనుకుంటా. హలో,
శ్రీనివాస్ సార్ వినపడలేదు.
Okay.
యూనివర్స్ ఆర్ గెటింగ్ రెసిస్టెంట్.
So one more thing,
Sir,
just under my experience only, when the patient having developed a pan drug resistant and patients are financially very poor, I used to try with this cotrimoxazole, Bactrim DS and chloramphenicol, sir.
so it's good for Acinetobacter, sir. It is very good. Yes.
With a less cost.
Klebsiella and ఓకే
Sir.
సార్ ఇప్పుడు వినబడుతుందా?
వినపడుతుంది సార్.
సార్ ఇది వాట్ వి సీ ఈస్ యాంటీబయాటిక్స్ కాజింగ్ multiple use of antibiotics causes resistance to the organisms by different mechanisms. So is it correct, sir? Is it proven? We see in a road practice.
Sir, అంటే there is a what sir మీరు అడిగింది ఏంటంటే ఎక్కువ యాంటీబయాటిక్స్ if we use there is a possibility of developing resistance. Is it correct or not? So it is not that using of higher end antibiotics, it is using improper use of antibiotic, like less doses, less duration, and we need to understand that always that 4 years, adequate doses, appropriate timing, adequate penetrance into the tissue where the actual infection is harboring. When we are not able to meet this criteria, yes, it is improper usage of antibiotic. If I say that like colistin, I told that a urinary tract infection with the MDR Acinetobacter, colistin is the sensitivity in vitro. But if I use polymix in there, it is, even though it is a polymyxin variety, it won't go into urinary tract. So it's an improper usage of antibiotic. So then there is a possibility of developing resistance.
Sir, there is some lot of studies were published.
Sir.
Saying that when a patient is suppose a patient, we have seen many patients, like patient is having a Klebsiella.
Sir.
Now the patient will be having an ESBL infection. That might be an ESBL. So
Sir.
once we start using patient on antibiotics for the next 1 week or 10 days, then again the patient goes down. Once this patient goes down, we identify that this patient is having an MDR infection.
Sir.
So is it really the same organism is becoming resistant, or a different organism? Because some of the things what I read from the literature, this is long back, what they say is maybe last year or something, say that you are having a new infection because until I do a genotyping, I don't know that same organism is developing resistance or not. So the patient has gone down because you have a resistant organism. Even though if you give antibiotics, is it related to antibiotics or not? But intrinsically, it is developing its resistance pattern. So we have different types of organisms, so that is developing resistance. So did you look any literature on this, sir?
Yes, sir. We are observed that initially it may be SBL E. coli sensitive to carbapenem, your culture sensitivity pattern. As you said, after 1 week, patient is deteriorating, and you send the cultures again. You are getting MDR, XDR, Klebsiella, or Pseudomonas, or Acinetobacter this time, not the previous one, what you treated and what you thought. So different multi-drug or extended drug resistant bacterial pattern are changing as long as patient in the ICU. Definitely, we look into the genetical pattern.
Yes, sir. After 10 days, you will get a PDR. There's no
Definitely.
sensitivity.
Yeah.
So Is it the same organism or a different organism?
Different. Mostly
What
it is different.
evidence is?
Evidence means we are getting the sensitivity pattern, no, the reports. We have reports.
ఎందుకంటే
What
why
I will show that.
నా మైండ్ లో ఏంటంటే why, because nowadays we should not use for any patient the azithromycin or amoxicillin flavulanic acid in any of our patients. Why I will tell you. Now I am seeing almost every patient is taking azithromycin.
Yeah, for pneumonia particularly.
Still that drug is working.
For atypical pneumonia, patient presented with pneumonia, we don't know whether it is atypical or streptococcus pneumoniae or pseudomonas. But we have to cover both, kadana.
No. Now the use of people by without prescription is very high.
That is there. Yeah.
Because I am doing OPD also. No, I am seeing every patient after 10 days comes to me saying that yellow sputum and cough is not decreasing. What you have used means, so most of them first they use 5 days of azithromycin. After that they use 5 days of augmentin and they come to doctor now.
Yeah.
So that's the scenario. If this antibiotic resistance is acquires only with the drugs, so we should not use these medicines, one. And really this I have searched last year, I think a lot of evidence. We are definitely having the use of antibiotics is increasing the resistance. There is no doubt in that. But is it really the same organism or different organism? Antibiotics valane avutunda leda anedi
Mostly it is different organism. What I found in our ICU or in some other ICU also, it is different organism, not same. Mostly.
Hello.
Yeah. What is your opinion, Satish?
Sir, say we treat, see, a patient is in ICU, he developed a infection. We have treated him, he's settling better, he's improving. Later he develops a new infection. That is normal scenario. That new infection is most of the times is a different bug, because we are suppressing the basic sensitive bugs. Ultimately, the resistant bugs will survive and they show their quality. We are suppressing the sensitive bugs because we are following the sensitivity pattern. We are treating the patient as per the sensitivity report, and patient is getting better. And there is no reason like why he should not get a new infection in ICU, because ICU is full of resistant bugs that harbors in the patient, and we get within 5 to 7 days a new infection, and then altogether a different bug. It is not the same bug who acquired an infection, resistance. It is a new resistant bug that is already indwelling in the ICU.
Yes. We are getting in our ICU, we are having another type of drug culture sensitivity pattern. First, they are giving one culture sensitivity pattern which does not include ceftazidime, avibactam, or fosfomycin or aztreonam. Now they are giving two types of culture sensitivity pattern. First, they will give a routine, as you said, cephalosporins, all these things, carbapenems. Second means within a few hours they are giving extended drug sensitivity pattern, which includes these things. Are you getting this type or including same?
We need to ask, sir, for the
Yes.
so they are doing it.
We need to ask.
Yes.
Okay, but we told them to give for all culture sensitivity. We told them to give this extended drug sensitivity also, because we are not using this gene expert this thing carbar or AXA 48 is initially. So we told them to give two patterns, because they have this E strips for this all these drugs. So we told them initially itself, we told them to give a test for all these drugs.
Good. Anything?
Mohan Rao garu, మీరు కూడా అలా చేస్తున్నారా? Mohan Rao.
Sir.
Are you asking for extended drug sensitivity for ceftazidime, avibactam, fosfomycin, aztreonam, all this type of drugs?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Huh?
Culture sensitivity. No, sir. No, sir.
Now
Sometimes
they
we
are
are getting.
doing.
Now they are doing. The
Doing
Pfizer
it.
is providing that kits regarding the azithromycin and ceftazidime and avibactam. Fosfomycin is there, sir. Actually.
అది ఆస్ట్రియో వీటికి సెపరేట్ గా ఇస్తున్నారు, మాకు రెండు పేపర్స్.
రెండు పేపర్స్ ఇస్తున్నారా?
అది we have to ask them to do this also, so
Yes,
that
sir.
we can we need not do this gene expert this thing because no practically we are not doing no biofire all these things. అందుకనే ఆ రిపోర్ట్ వచ్చేలోపు ఇదే 2-3 days we are getting this report also, so we are asking them to do this.
Dr. Nityanand also is here from Continental. Nityanand, can you comment on what is the pattern you are giving in Continental? Nityanand.
ఎవరు?
Dr. Nityanand Rao.
Nityanand is there?
Physician and critical care specialist. Now he is in Continental. Nityanand.
లెఫ్ట్ అనుకుంటారు, లేడు ఇప్పుడు.
లేడా?
వచ్చాడు ముందు జాయిన్ అయ్యాడు, ఇప్పుడు లేడు.
లేడా? ఓకే.
Satish garu, nice talk.
Thank you.
But PDR వచ్చిన వాటికి అవుట్ ఆఫ్ ఆల్ ద థింగ్స్ టెస్టెడ్ ఒకటి కూడా ఇంటర్మీడియట్ లేదు, సెన్సిటివ్ లేదు. సో వాట్ డు యు డు?
మేడం అలాంటి క్వశ్చన్ అడిగితే ఏం చెప్తాను మేడం నేను?
మరి మీ టాక్ కి సంబంధించిందే సార్.
లాస్ట్ అదే కదా స్లైడ్.
మేడం ఇట్స్ ఓన్లీ కాంబినేషన్స్ మేడం, అంతే. బెస్ట్ పాసిబుల్ హిట్ హార్డ్ అంతే. అంటే
మీరు అడ్వాన్స్డ్ ఇప్పుడు ఇండియాలో దొరకని అలాంటివి కూడా చెప్పారు. బట్ ఎట్ ద సేమ్ టైం డు వి గో బ్యాక్ టు వెరీ బేసిక్ యాంటీబయోటిక్స్ అండ్ టెస్ట్ దెమ్, ట్రై దెమ్?
మేడం నేను ఒక పేషెంట్ లో వాట్ హ్యావ్ డన్, నేను పేషెంట్ హూ వాజ్ అన్ ఎక్మో లాస్ట్ టైం కూడా చెప్పాను. దేర్ ఈస్ నో ఆప్షన్, పేషెంట్ ఈస్ డైయింగ్, ఐ హావ్ టు మేక్ హర్ టు లివ్ ఫర్ 1 more or 2 more days. What I have done, by that time patient is already on meropenem and colistin and TG-cycline. So what I could do, I have added ceftazidime, avibactam, aztreonam, Bactrim injections and inudilafungin injections. All possible antibiotics that are available on that particular day I have given it, and I made her to survive for 2 more days so that they went on LAMA. ఇంకా దానికి రేషనల్ లేదు, సైన్స్ లేదు.
అయ్యో, అదే అంటే ప్రొలాంగింగ్ అలాగని. బట్ ఎనీబడి యూస్డ్ ఎనీథింగ్ లైక్ విచ్ వర్క్డ్ వెల్ అండ్ దే గాట్ బెటర్? డేవిడ్ శ్రీనివాస్.
అదే మేడం, ఫైనల్లీ వాట్ ఈస్ ద కాంబినేషన్ ఆఫ్ ceftazidime, avibactam, aztreonam plus fosfomycin for Klebsiella E. coli or TG-cycline if it is Acinetobacter and other drugs. So they have divided combinations. If it is Acinetobacter, ceftazidime, avibactam plus aztreonam plus TG-cycline.
అంటే ఏ మొత్తం అన్ని యాంటీబయాటిక్స్ ఇచ్చాడు ఆ పేషెంట్ కి?
అన్ని ఇచ్చాను సార్,
Suppose a dying patient with PDR with a clinically worse, we need to do all combination 5 to 6 drug regimen. Suppose
another concept recently ID people told we are doing, if patient is a severe renal insufficiency and we need to only sensitive to colistin, so what they are doing, they are giving ceftazidime, avibactam plus aztreonam. The effect of this one is almost equal to or more than colistin. So they are avoiding colistin resistance plus colistin toxicity by using this combination ceftazidime, avibactam plus fosfomycin, which is equal to colistin.
Yeah. So there again, no, the combination therapy for Acinetobacter baumannii MDR comes together, where again you have to come back to chloramphenicol or Bactrim DS or rifamycin. Something should be added to synergy for this Acinetobacter.
Correct. Now we had one patient, Klebsiella pneumoniae, bacterial endocarditis, infective endocarditis, and is a post-KT. Some rejection is there and creatinine is around elevated, but ENO output is there. The culture sensitivity shows intermediate sensitivity to only colistin. So what combination you will prefer in this patient?
Same thing, no, what you said is, ceftazidime avibactam with azithromycin combination, because you are telling it is Klebsiella, most probably it is a carbapenemase, and in Indian scenario, it is NDM. So combination of azithromycin with cef-avi.
Plus phosphomycin. So for one question to the student.
Sir, ఇది NDMs కి
Sir.
ceftazidime with avibactam పనిచేస్తుందా సార్ మనం ఆక్సాన్ టెస్ట్ చేయకముందే?
అదే సార్ మనకు తెలియదు కదా. See, we have to ask when they say that it is carbapenem resistant, we have to ask for what resistance it is. Then if anybody in microbiology people can support us like it is OXA48 or NDM, then we can tailor our antibiotics. If it is OXA48, it is comfortable, you can go with cef-avi. But if it is NDM or a common, there is a possibility of existence of the combination, like NDM plus OXA48. Then we cef-avi with azithromycin, adding a minocycline or colistin will help in these patients.
So ఇప్పుడు only if suppose if it's an NDM, we don't know is oxa or NDM.
Yes.
And suppose if it's an NDM, we adding a phosphomycin for ceftazidime avibactam
Plus azithromycin
may not help much అనిపిస్తుంది.
No, azithromycin add చేయాలి సార్.
Azithromycin is mandatory for this combination.
That is the basic thing. Cef-avi plus azithromycin is the basic thing. On the top of that, consider adding colistin, tigecycline, and any of this phosphomycin or minocycline.
One question for students: why colistin will not work for gram-positive bacteria, and what is the resistant mechanism for colistin if it is PDR? Students unnara?
No.
Hello?
No.
Lera?
Clear.
So anybody can.
ఈ ఫోన్ అన్నది ఎవరు ఎక్కడ?
ఎవరు లేరా?
లేరు, ఎవరు లేరు, చెప్పే.
So the colistin actually works on the outer membrane of the cell wall. There is no outer membrane
for gram positives.
Yeah, for gram positives. So it breaks the outer cell wall membrane to enter the bacteria. So because there is no outer membrane, it won't work. So intrinsically it won't work, as you said. Second thing, the resistance pattern, I think you have shown already. Resistance pattern is by modifying the outer cell wall membrane amino acid, that is lipopolysaccharide A. There are A, B, C, D polysaccharides are there in the outer membrane. The lipopolysaccharide A is modified. So once it is modified, it won't allow the colistin to enter to the to enter inside. And another one is by producing the MCR1 gene in India, particularly MCR1 gene. MGRB gene. These two are there. The MCR1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10. Yeah, it is there. And the MGRB gene is there. Another one is efflux mechanism. These three mechanisms are to develop the resistance to colistin. Yes.
Colistin kada. Okay.
Colistin resistance. Because the final drug is available in all ICUs, so we should know the resistance pattern also for colistin.
Right.
Okay, Anna, nice talk. And if there are no questions, we will close the session.
Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.